In the heart of Mbali, a humble village in eastern Africa wrapped in sun-baked soil and whispering winds, life moved at the pace of nature. Roosters crowed at dawn, children chased goats through bushy paths, and the scent of roasted maize clung to the air. But in one corner of this peaceful land, silence had taken hold. Inside a weather-worn, two-room mud house roofed with rusting tin sheets lived Kifur and his little sister Aina. Their father Benja, a tall and gentle man who used to wake them with lullabies and stories from his days as a hunter, had died nearly a year ago. A freak accident during a storm had sent a tree crashing down on him while he searched for firewood in the hills. He never came back. Since that day, their mother, Naoma, had tried her best to keep the family afloat. Known in the village for her beadwork and nurturing spirit, she had always found strength in the joy of her children. But grief, exhaustion, and months of poor nutrition began to break her down. Her strong back bent from endless chores. Her voice lost its cheer. Then came the cough. It started small, a dry wheeze after long days. But slowly it turned violent, with streaks of blood staining her handkerchief and sleepless nights haunting the walls of their home. With no income and no close relatives nearby, Naoma had no choice but to rely on the village clinic, a place with one bed, one overworked nurse, and no electricity after sunset. There were no machines, no specialists, just hope and herbal remedies. Kifur, though barely 12, became the man of the house. Every morning he would leave early, carrying his handmade broom to sweep school compounds or sell water in reused plastic bottles to earn a few coins. Anna, only 9, stopped going to school. Instead, she stayed behind to cook watery porridge, wash clothes by the river, and take care of her mother. At night, Kifur would read aloud from a torn book of folk tales by Kerosene Lamp, his mother, smiling faintly between coughs. One evening, when Naoma could no longer get out of bed, the children panicked. "Ma, you'll get better, right?" Anna asked, clutching her mother's cold hand. Naoma tried to smile, but her lips trembled. God, willing, my flower. That night, as Naoma's breathing grew shallower, Kifur sat by her side and made a vow in the darkness. "I won't let you leave us, Ma. I don't know how, but I'll save you." Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. Lightning danced across the hills. And somewhere, beyond Mbele's horizon, destiny began to shift. 3 days had passed since Naoma last stood on her feet. Her breath rattled in her chest, her lips were parched, and her once vibrant eyes were now sunken and dim. The local nurse, Mama Didi, had done everything in her power, administered herbs, fever relievers, and even boiled leaves for steam therapy. But nothing worked. Naoma's body was losing the battle. Kifur couldn't bear to watch anymore. That morning, long before the first rooster crowed, he packed a torn canvas bag with a bottle of water, a packet of groundnuts, and the small prescription. Note Mama Didi had written in a mix of Swahili and English. Clutching his sister's hand, he whispered, "We're going to Nerota." Anna blinked. "That's far." "I know, but that's where the real pharmacy is. Maybe they'll help Mama." It was a 5-hour walk to Nerota, the closest town with paved roads, electricity, and hospitals. Kifur and Anna trekked the dusty footpaths barefoot, their souls hardened by village life. The sun beat down on their heads, but neither complained. Every time Anna felt tired, Kifur gave her a sip of water and told her a story. Sometimes they imagined their mother cooking for them again. Sometimes they pictured their father walking beside them, holding Naoma's hand. When they finally reached Nerota, the noise startled them. Honking cars, vendors shouting about tomatoes and yams, men in suits pacing the sidewalk. The town felt like another world. They passed buildings taller than anything they'd ever seen, and Anna stopped to stare at a TV inside a shop window, showing a woman in a lab coat dancing in a toothpaste advert. The pharmacy wasn't hard to find. Its sign read, "CityMed RX, trusted, since 1983. Inside, it smelled of antiseptics and cold air. Kifur approached the glass counter where a man in a white coat glanced at them briefly before returning to his computer. Kifur gently placed the paper on the counter and said, "Excuse me, sir, we need this medicine for our mama. She's sick, very sick." The pharmacist read the note, typed something into the system, then raised an eyebrow. "Do you have money?" Kifur nodded and slowly pulled out the money he'd saved over months, coins tied in a plastic bag. The pharmacist counted them with a bored expression. "This is not even 1/5 the price, boy. You think medicine is for free?" Kifur's lips trembled. Anna looked down, clutching the hem of her brother's shirt. "Please," he said. "She'll die if we don't take it back today." The pharmacist turned his back. Next. Tears stung Kifur's eyes, but he stood his ground. He was about to plead again when a voice behind him interrupted. "How much is it?" the man asked. They turned. He was tall, probably in his late 40s, wearing a crisp linen shirt and dark jeans. But there was something gentle in the way he looked at them. Not pity, but concern. The pharmacist shrugged. 45,000 shillings. Without another word, the man pulled out a leather wallet, peeled off several notes, and handed them over. "Give them everything on that list, and give the receipt to me." The children stared. Anna whispered, "He's like an angel." The man knelt down so he was eye level with them. "What are your names?" "I'm Kifur. She's Anna." "Where's your mother?" "In Mbale. In the clinic. She can't move." He paused, his expression clouding for a moment. Then he said, "Let's go see her." Kifur hesitated. "You want to come to Mbale? It's far, and the road is bad." The man smiled. "That's all right. I have a car. You won't walk today." The black SUV parked outside stood like a foreign creature against the dusty road. It had tinted windows, leather seats, and smelled like citrus soap. As they drove through winding roads and small villages, Kifur clutched the medicine tightly in his hands. "You don't even know us," he said softly. The man glanced at him through the mirror. "I don't have to know someone to care. Sometimes the heart knows before the mind understands." Anna slept on the way. Kifur stayed awake, staring at the stranger, wondering who he was and why he felt familiar. They reached Mbale just before sunset. The wind carried the scent of cooking, fires and maize again. Villagers gathered outside the clinic to see the car, some whispering, others staring in awe. When the man stepped inside the dark clinic and saw Naoma lying frail and ghostly on the bed, his entire body froze. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then, in a trembling voice, he said, "Naoma?" Her eyes fluttered open, and even in her weakness, she recognized the voice. Her lips parted. "Samo?" The silence in the room thickened like smoke. Kifur stared. "You know him, Mama?" But Naoma had already slipped into unconsciousness again, too weak to answer. The man, Samo Olaro, stood rooted, one hand gripping the doorframe, his face a storm of memories. Outside, the wind picked up, and a new chapter began to write itself in the dust. The night air hung heavy with silence as the villagers whispered about the mysterious man in the shining black SUV. No one in Mbale had seen such a car up close before, let alone parked in front of the village clinic. Children peeked through the windows while elders sat beneath mango trees, talking in low tones. Inside the dimly lit clinic, Samo Olaro sat beside Naoma's bed, his broad shoulders hunched forward as if carrying a weight. Too heavy for one man. He hadn't moved much since he'd spoken her name. The storm in his eyes hadn't settled. Kifur sat near his mother's feet, watching the stranger cautiously. His heart thudded with questions he didn't dare ask. Anna sat on the floor, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees, her head resting on her brother's side. "Who is he?" Kifur, she whispered. I don't know, he said, but Mama knows him. Did you see how she said his name? Simo's fingers brushed Naoma's hand gently. It was a trembling touch, like someone trying to reach across a canyon of years. Her fever had broken thanks to the medication, but she was still far from strong. Mama Didi, the nurse, gave her a drip and whispered to Simo as she worked. She's holding on, barely, but that medicine came just in time. Without it, she might not have seen tomorrow. Simo nodded, his face unreadable. I'll make sure she sees many tomorrows. That night, Simo stayed in the clinic on a wooden stool. He refused the offer to rest in the village chief's guest hut. He sat in silence, watching over Naoma like a guardian. Kifur didn't sleep either. He watched Simo, and as the hours dragged on, Naoma finally opened her eyes again, this time with clarity. Weak, but lucid. Naoma, Simo said gently. She blinked slowly, then tears began to fall from the corners of her eyes. I thought you were dead, Simo. Simo smiled faintly, brushing his thumb across her forehead. And I thought you were lost. Kifur stood up, stunned. Mama, you really know him? Who is he? Naoma looked toward her son, her lips parting slowly. Simo is your father's brother. Kifur's jaw dropped. Uncle? Anna's eyes widened. We have an uncle? Simo nodded. Yes, I am, and I should have come sooner. Naoma turned her face to the wall for a long moment, breathing slowly. Simo sat down beside the children. Let me tell you something. When your father died, I was overseas in South Africa. I didn't even know. We hadn't spoken in years, not because we didn't care, but because life, it pulls people in different directions. He stared at his hands, shaking slightly. Benja and I were close once. As boys, we slept on the same mat. We fought over mangoes. We built kites from newspaper and string. But when we grew up, I wanted city life. He chose this place. I left to study. I sent letters. Then I stopped. I didn't know he died until last week. Kifur blinked, still trying to understand. But why did you help us? You didn't even know we were your family. I saw myself in your eyes, boy, Simo said. The fire, the fear, the pride. You looked just like Benja. Anna whispered. You saved Mama. Simo nodded, swallowing hard. And I will keep saving her. And you too. Naoma reached for his hand. Simo, when Benja died, I didn't know where to turn. I prayed you would find us someday. And now, you're here. Simo stood and took a deep breath. No more prayers unanswered. When she's strong enough, I'll take you all to Nirota. You'll live in my house, the children will go back to school, and you, he looked at Naoma. You'll rest, not break. Naoma cried quietly, for all the years of silence and suffering. Kifur and Anna huddled close beside her, and though her body was still frail, her heart felt stronger than it had in years. The next morning, the entire village gathered outside the clinic to witness what they called a miracle. People offered boiled eggs, fruits, and prayers. Chief Omole, the village elder, came personally to thank Simo. You remind us that the world still has men with hearts, the chief said. Simo simply replied, no child should suffer while I still breathe. As Naoma slowly recovered, word spread across the region about the orphans who found their uncle through fate and kindness. But even as joy began to bloom again, Kifur noticed something else in Simo's eyes, something that hadn't been spoken yet. A sadness, a regret. Later that night, Simo stood alone under the baobab tree, staring at the stars. Kifur walked up beside him. You okay, Uncle? Simo smiled. Yes, just remembering. What are you remembering? "The promise I made to your father." Kiefer looked up. "What was the promise?" Simo's voice was soft. "That if anything ever happened to him, I would protect his family like my own." He placed a strong hand on Kiefer's shoulder. "I failed once. I won't fail again." The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere in the sky, a star shot across the dark, like a silent vow from the heavens. And Kiefer, for the first time in a long while, believed that tomorrow would be better. A week later, the dusty village of Mbale watched with bittersweet joy as a black SUV, now familiar to every child and elder, rolled slowly out of town. Inside were Naoma, still thin but sitting upright with a scarf around her head. Anna, her small hands pressed against the window as she waved goodbye to Mama Dady and the other villagers. And Kiefer, sitting beside Simo Olaro with pride glowing in his chest and a million questions swirling in his head. Naoma had cried when they left. She had buried her husband Benja in that village, raised 2 children through hunger, pain, and grief. Every crack in the wall of her old hut held a memory. But when Simo held her hand and said, "Let me carry the burden now," she knew it was time to let go. The road to Nirota was long, winding and bumpy in places. But as they entered the city, Anna's eyes widened. She clutched her mother's shawl. "Mama, there are so many cars, and look at that building. It touches the clouds." Naoma smiled weakly, stroking her daughter's hair. "Yes, my child, this is a new beginning." Simo's house stood behind a tall black gate at the edge of the city. It wasn't just a house, it was a compound. Cream-painted walls, trimmed hedges, and a garden full of blooming hibiscus flowers. There were 3 bedrooms, a tiled bathroom with running water, and a kitchen that smelled faintly of cinnamon and lemon polish. It was unlike anything Kiefer and Anna had ever seen. Their jaws dropped as they stepped inside. "This is where you live?" Kiefer asked in disbelief. Simo laughed. "Yes, and now it's where you live too." Naoma gasped as she saw her room. Soft mattress, fresh sheets, a full-length mirror on the wall. She sat on the edge of the bed, tears slipping down, her cheeks silently. For the first time in years, she didn't have to sleep on a mat or boil river water to drink. For the first time in years, she could breathe. Within days, a new routine began. Simo hired a home nurse, Sister Fiona, to help Naoma regain her strength. She walked slowly with the help of a cane but improved each day. He enrolled Anna into a private academy nearby, buying her new uniforms, shiny black shoes, and pink ribbons for her hair. Kiefer was enrolled into Nirota Science and Tech School, where students learned coding, robotics, and mathematics on tablets. The siblings had never even used a smartphone before. Now they were surrounded by technology and books. Teachers praised their eagerness. Their classmates stared at first, curious about the new village kids, but Kiefer and Anna stood their ground, proud, humble, and fearless. Despite all the good, something remained quietly buried. A question Kiefer could not shake. One night after homework, he sat with Semo on the patio where the stars peeked through the clouds. "Uncle," he said, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." Kiefer hesitated. "Why didn't you come back sooner? After my father died, Mama struggled so much. Why didn't you find us then?" Simo's eyes dimmed. "I tried," he said softly, "but I didn't try hard enough." He leaned back, hands folded. "When I returned from South Africa, I searched for your family. But someone told me Naoma remarried and left the country. I was angry, confused, and I believed them." Kiefer frowned. "But she never left. She stayed." "I know now," Simo whispered, "and I carry the shame of my doubt every day. I let years pass in silence. I let grief blind me." A heavy pause lingered between them. But Kifur, Simo said, turning to him, you and your sister gave me a second chance, and I'll spend the rest of my life honoring it. Kifur looked down at his hands. Do you think my father would be proud of us? Simo placed a hand on his shoulder. He'd be more than proud. He'd say you're braver than most men I know. The next day, Naoma asked for a walk in the garden. She had begun gaining weight again. Her cheeks had color. Her voice had strength. While sitting beneath a mango tree, she looked at Simo and said, They're thriving, Simo. Thank you. He smiled gently. They're your children. I'm just helping them reach the light. She hesitated, then added, I never stopped believing you'd come. Even when the roof leaked when I sold my last wrapper to buy porridge, some part of me always believed. Simo's eyes watered. I'm sorry I let so many years pass. Naoma shook her head. The important thing is, we're here now, and they have a future. That same week, Anna brought home a drawing from school, a sketch of their old village hut next to a tall modern building with a big sun rising behind it. On the page she had written, This is our life, from struggle to sunrise. Naoma hung it in the living room, right above the framed picture of her late husband. Simo saw it and whispered, From struggle to sunrise. That's our story. But in the quiet of his bedroom that night, Semo opened a drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope, one he'd never dared to open. It was written in Benja's handwriting, a letter left for him before his death. He ran his fingers over the paper and finally whispered, Tomorrow. I'll read it tomorrow. But tomorrow would bring a revelation none of them saw coming, one that would change everything they believed about the past. The morning sun stretched lazily over Narota, casting golden rays across the courtyard as birds chirped in the mango trees. Inside Simo's house, everything appeared peaceful. Anna was packing her school bag. Naoma was sitting upright sipping her warm tea while chatting softly with Sister Fiona. Kifur was practicing his mathematics homework, brows furrowed in thought. But Semo Olaro's heart wasn't calm. The unopened envelope, yellowed slightly with time, sat before him on his desk. Written on the front in faded ink were the words, To my brother, if I am gone. He had stared at that letter for weeks, too afraid to open it, afraid of what it might reveal or what guilt it might confirm. But after seeing Naoma's smile yesterday and hearing Kifur say, You gave us life again, he knew it was time. With the trembling hands, Simo broke the seal and unfolded the paper inside. Dear Simo, if you're reading this, it means my time on this earth has ended. My only hope is that you are safe, and that you'll come back one day. I don't have much time. I've been sick, and the doctors say it won't be long. I need to tell you the truth. Years ago, I received a letter that claimed you had died, in Johannesburg. It came with no name, just a return address from some lawyer's office. I believed it, foolishly. I mourned you. That lie broke something in me. And worse, it made me bitter. I didn't reach out to you again. But the truth, Semo, is this. You were never just my brother. You were my son's godfather. You were the one I trusted most in the world. If you find Naoma, if you find Kifur and Anna, don't just help them, raise them, guide them, be their light. They deserve better than I was able to give them. Tell Kifur that his stubbornness is strength. Tell Anna that her kindness is her superpower. Tell Naoma. Tell her I loved her deeply until my final breath. And you, Simo, don't let grief or shame swallow you. Be the man I always knew you could be. Be their anchor. Your brother, Benja Olaro tears spilled freely from Simo's eyes as he finished reading. He pressed the letter to his chest and wept, for the years lost, for the pain carried in silence, for the final words of a brother who still believed in him. That afternoon, he gathered everyone in the living room. Naoma noticed the letter in his hand. "Is that?" she began. "Yes," he nodded. "It's from Benja. He wrote it before he died." Silence settled over them. Simo cleared his throat. "I want to read it to you." He read the letter out loud, voice shaking with emotion. Kafur listened wide-eyed. Anna leaned into her mother's. Sighed, her little fingers wrapped tightly around Naoma's. By the time he finished, everyone had tears in their eyes, not from pain, but from the healing that comes with truth. Naoma stood up, steadier than she had in months. She walked to Simo and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't fail him, Simo. You came. You kept the promise." Simo looked down at the children and spoke with renewed certainty. "From this day, you are not my niece and nephew. You are my children, and this is your home, forever." Naoma's knees gave slightly, and she lowered herself to the couch, weeping. Not in sorrow, but in pure relief. The children rushed to embrace her, and then Simo joined, all four wrapped, in a circle of love that even death could not break. 3 months later, Naoma walked without a cane. Her cheeks were full again, her laugh returning. She joined a local women's cooperative, teaching widows how to make natural soaps and lotions for city markets. Anna won a regional essay competition titled "What Home Means to Me." Her essay was read on local radio, and people from across the city called in, crying and praising the child who turned pain into poetry. Kifur, he had become the school's robotics champion. His team built a solar-powered water filter system, and a national tech firm offered him a scholarship at age 12. Simo sat quietly one evening, watching them all through the living room window. A voice startled him. "You look like a man who's found peace." He turned. Naoma was standing behind him, smiling gently. "I am," he said, "for the first time in years." Naoma stepped closer, holding a small frame. "I had this made." Inside was a collage of their old home in Mbale, pictures of Anna and Kifur at school, and a handwritten note from her that read, "Because you didn't save us, you helped us save ourselves." Simo took the frame, touched it, and smiled. "Thank you," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for never giving up." One night, under the wide African sky, the family sat outside on woven mats, watching the stars. "Papa would be happy," Kifur said, looking upward. Anna nodded. "He sent Uncle Simo to us." Naoma, her hand resting on Simo's, added softly, "And we will keep walking forward, for him, and for ourselves." Simo looked at his new family, eyes glistening. The stars above shimmered like 1,000 blessings. And for the first time, their story, one born from sorrow, had become a story of hope. A new chapter had begun, from struggle to sunrise.